Author Morgan Housel makes this brilliant point. He says that while people do some seemingly crazy things with money, no one is actually crazy. Why? Well, because we all justify our financial decisions based on the exact information we have in the moment, plus the unique mental model of the world we've inherited. Basically, your personal history, your pride, and your fears, they dictate your behavior way more than any spreadsheet ever could.
To really wrap our heads around this, here's our game plan. 1. We'll see why money isn't math. 2. The magic of compounding. 3. Luck, risk, and outliers. 4. Rich versus truly wealthy. 5. The price of investing. And 6. Knowing exactly when to stop.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1. Money is not math. We're uncovering your financial DNA. Think about how your so-called financial DNA is forged across totally different generations. If you were born in 1970, you grew up with a booming stock market during your teens and 20s. That shaped a lifelong optimism and a natural inclination to invest. But if you were a 1950s baby, you watched a stagnant market go absolutely nowhere during those exact same formative years, making you naturally distrustful of it. Or think about inflation. A 1960s baby really felt the sting of high inflation, whereas a 1990s baby barely even noticed it growing up. Listen, none of these people are crazy for how they handle their finances. Their highly distinct, deeply personal experiences simply dictate their worldview. Moving right along to section 2, the magic of compounding. This is all about time over timing.
Get a load of this number, $81.5 billion. Out of Warren Buffett's staggering $84.5 billion net worth, $81.5 billion was earned after he reached his mid-60s. It completely proves that Buffett's real secret isn't just being a good investor. Actually, scratch that. His secret is being a good investor since he was 10 years old. His skill is investing, sure, but his actual literal superpower is just time.
This crucial point really hits home when we compare Buffett to hedge fund manager Jim Simons. Simons has compounded money at a mind-boggling 66% annually since 1988. That is a massively higher rate of return than Buffett, and yet Simons' net worth is 75% less than Buffett's. Why on earth is that? Simply because Simons didn't find his investing stride until he was 50 years old. He had less than half as many years to let his money compound. It's a wild, counterintuitive reality. Time in the market consistently beats your rate of return. The catch is, waiting takes patience, and that completely clashes with our human nature, because good things like compounding interest or a 140% market gain over 6 years, or even gradual medical progress that saves 500,000 lives a year, they happen super slowly. They don't make flashy headlines. Instead, our attention gets hijacked by sudden, negative events. We notice a 40% market drop in 6 months. We notice plane crashes. There are so many overnight tragedies, but almost zero overnight miracles. And that breeds this inherent pessimism that we have to actively fight against. Okay, section 3, let's talk about luck, risk, and outliers, the hidden forces. The story of these two brilliantly matched prodigies perfectly shows how success is this messy combination of talent and external factors. Back in 1968, out of 300 million high school students, Bill Gates attended one of the only schools in the whole world with an advanced computer. Did he have incredible vision and work ethic? Absolutely. But he also caught the wind of literally 1 in a million luck. Now, his classmate, Kent Evans, was equally brilliant and visionary. He could have easily been a co-founder of Microsoft. But Kent met the tragic wave of unpredictable risk, losing his life in a 1 in a million mountaineering accident before he even graduated. We control our sails, but guys, we do not control the wind or the waves. This unpredictable nature extends to what we call tail events, which is perfectly illustrated by the legendary art dealer Heinz Berggruen. His immense fortune was not built on being right every single time. Not at all. Instead, he amassed this massive portfolio where 99% of the art turned out to be basically worthless. His entire fortune relied on the remaining 1%, just waiting for a few Picassos and Matisses to emerge. The vast majority of his outcomes were driven by a tiny, tiny handful of massive successes.
And we see this exact same hidden tail event dynamic in the corporate world with Amazon. Remember the Fire Phone? A few years ago, Jeff Bezos didn't panic over that disastrous release. Why? Because he knew that making a bunch of mistakes is perfectly fine, as long as that same process ultimately creates massive outliers like Amazon Prime and AWS. Those few tail events drive all the meaningful returns, making the failures look like tiny blips on the radar. Once you know to look for it, you see this everywhere. It's the venture capital fund where a single 20x startup makes up for 50 absolute failures. It's the comedian's highly polished Netflix special that represents just the surviving 1% of jokes from hundreds of brutal, failed club performances. Even Warren Buffett has picked around 500 stocks in his lifetime, yet just 10 of them have driven the vast majority of his wealth. Tail events are totally unintuitive, but they absolutely drive the world.
All right, section 4, rich versus truly wealthy, the invisible asset. So we are culturally conditioned to think that having money means spending it, right? We see money as just a tool for immediate consumption. But the counterintuitive reality is that accumulating actual wealth is purely an exercise in self-control. Wealth is strictly defined by the financial assets that you have not spent yet. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that you cannot judge success by appearances alone. The flashy Lamborghini, the huge house, the diamond ring, those are visible signs of being rich, and that just means you have a high current income and you're actively spending it. True wealth, however, is basically invisible. It's the first-class upgrade you declined, it's the car you didn't buy, it's the silent, unglamorous self-restraint of money securely saved and invested for your future. It's so much harder to imitate because you simply can't see it. Which brings us to section 5, the price of investing. Admission fee versus fine. Imagine you want a car. You can buy a new one, which costs a lot but gets you great features. That's just like aiming for a high 12% market return. Or you could buy a used car, which is cheaper but less rewarding. That's like settling for a safe 4% bond. Or you could try to steal it. In real life, almost no one steals the car. But in the stock market, people constantly try to steal market returns by dodging volatility. They try to time the market, jumping in right before booms and out right before dips, basically refusing to pay the actual price. Here's the reality you've got to accept. The price of successful investing isn't paid in dollars and cents. It's paid in volatility, fear, and deep, deep uncertainty. If you view those inevitable market dips as a punishment or a fine for doing something wrong, you will continually suffer and probably pull your money out at the worst possible times. But if you accept that volatility is just the standard admission fee you have to pay for a lifetime of long-term gains, you completely transform your entire psychological approach to money. And finally, section 6, knowing when to stop, defining enough. This right here is one of the most dangerous traps in personal finance, the hedonic treadmill. It's the psychological tendency to constantly move the goalpost further ahead the moment you achieve exactly what you thought you wanted. Just look at ultra-wealthy figures like Bernie Madoff or Rajat Gupta. These were guys who already had hundreds of millions of dollars, yet they resorted to extreme crimes because they fell victim to this exact treadmill. It proves that without a clearly defined finish line, the pursuit of money becomes a totally all-consuming addiction. And that brings us to our final paradigm shift. Studies consistently show this fascinating truth. Having direct control over your daily life, having the freedom to wake up and do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is a far, far better predictor of human happiness than the size of your house or the prestige of your salary. Time is the ultimate currency, and controlling it is literally the highest dividend your money can possibly pay. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a critical reflection on your own financial journey. Look at your numbers, look at your habits, and honestly ask yourself, are you building true, invisible wealth so you can eventually buy back your time and autonomy? Or are you just running faster and faster on a flashy treadmill with no end in sight?